Welcome to this week's community call. My apologies. The start of this call is missing. We are picking up with Nate telling us about the exciting updates from the latest Astro release.
Over the past month or two, Matthew and Bjorn have been, just working tirelessly through our HMR features. So we have much better error recovery. We actually did a bug bash the other day, and it was pretty hard to break things. So that's very impressive. Just a ton of stability improvements there. If you run into anything, please let us know, because we're always trying to improve it. One big thing is that changes to your config files actually get picked up. So if you update your Astro or Tailwind config or your package.json, those will actually come through. Erica has been working super hard improving our errors. So there's a whole bunch of improvements that came out in the past few weeks, but she is still working away at that. We will have a new design for the error page very soon. That should improve things quite a bit. New error overlay, so that's going to be awesome. Mark and Erica have been working hard on that. Improved a ton of error reference. So if you're building with Astro, we have a full reference page on errors. It will explain, what went wrong, other pages to check out to learn about what's going on, so that you can get unblocked. We have about 25 now, but we're going to continue to add them. So that's super exciting. There have been a ton of community contributions, so tons of helpful stuff coming out of the community, furthering all of the Astro goodness you've come to love. Super, super big thanks to everybody that's contributed. There are a bunch of Cloudflare things. So Daniel Airborne has been working on the Cloudflare adapter for the past couple of months. Now, with this PR, you can serve static assets and headers and redirects and routes.json, which are all pretty important things for the Cloudflare adapter. You can find out more about this on the Cloudflare adapter page on the Astro docs. Super good reference, and it's updated automatically as things are changing.
Language that extends HTML, because that's how you close an element. It just kind of flows naturally. But look, everyone has different opinions about syntax.
Sorry, Frankie, gonna mute you there. Yeah, backflip. Thomas added remark rehype support to the Astro MDX integration, which was a super nice change there. So basically, you can add remark rehype options and customize your footnotes. Brenly fixed a bug with the Partytown service worker, so things were not scoped to the base, and now they are, so it'll actually respect your base settings. Sam came and cleaned up some temporary Tailwind config files, so those should always get cleaned up, even if you hit an error. So that's super appreciated. That kind of polish is what everybody loves. Gabriel came in and updated our image, link, and script and iframe attributes to add fetch priority. Those were things that we were missing from the spec. Cool. Peter, do you want to jump in to chat about the support squad?
Please, yeah. So there was 3 heroes this. Well, we missed them last week as well, right? But the 2 we're carrying over for this week. So 3 heroes this week was PC. I mean, he has been so helpful, such a great guy in the community. Wassfila, he's relatively new to the Astro community, but he's been helping out a number of people in the support threads over the past 2 weeks, which I want to say a huge thank you to. And then there's our guy in the support threads, Bryceguy. As always, man, his support has just been fantastic. So yeah, our 3 community heroes for the past 2 weeks. So big shout, yeah, thank you.
Amazing.
Yay.
Whoops. Let's move over to the docs repo. I think we have Chris. But I can just kind of walk through. I don't know if you saw these slides, but
I have not. We've been doing stuff. Here's some PRs that got merged. Yeah, this is exciting. We've been doing a kind of community-led dive into our search on the doc site. So if anyone here wants to spend some time trying out some search terms and letting us know how they feel in terms of results and stuff, we have an open issue pinned in the docs repo. So yeah, just the idea is like we want to make sure that if you search for something, you can find what you want. So it's helpful to get people's opinions on whether that's working or not.
Amazing. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of terms here. So if you want to look at each of these and kind of let us know if it's what you expect, that would be very much appreciated.
Yep. And part of this is a new page in docs. One of the things we noticed is that we had a lot of people searching for script and on-click and things like that. And so that was just really helpful to guide us in what content was needed. So we have a new page. If you've ever been wondering like how to add a little bit of interactivity to your Astro component without reaching for React or whatever, here's your guide. Includes some introductions to web components and some patterns for passing props from your front matter, your server-side code to components in the browser. So yeah, hopefully that will help answer some common support questions. So also for support squad members, might be a good place to point to.
Nice. How are those CMS guides?
Oh yeah. So these have actually been around for a few weeks now, but we've never really made a big launch or like shouted about them, although we should have done because they were a ton of work. Kevin, who is not here, but Kevin did an amazing job writing guides for Storyblock and Contentful, so like how to get set up your Astro project, pulling content from those. Dan wrote the guide for AutoCMS, and the other things there are all smaller like stub pages with links to community resources. So if anyone writes like a blog post explaining how to get Sanity tied in with Astro, let us know. We can add a link there. It'll be super helpful.
Amazing. As always, you guys have a ton of docs contributors. I think you just hit this major.
Oh, wow. We hit 300. I missed that.
Yeah. That
302.
Really wild.
302.
304 I'm seeing.
Oh, wow. 4.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Awesome work.
Congrats on the huge milestone.
Yeah, super appreciate everyone who's joined that. Oh, no. No, that's not Astro. What? Fuzzy, no.
To be 300.
You will not get kicked in a while if you contribute to docs, I promise.
Good to know. Awesome. Thanks so much, Chris. Let's move over to the RFCs. So I believe Ben is here still. Yes. Awesome. I know we've chatted about it, but just wanted to chat again about content schemas. If you haven't read this, I'll drop the link in the chat here so you can read it over. But this is a really, really exciting RFC. Basically, an updated approach to working with content in Astro. So, Ben, do you want to walk us through? I know there's been some updates since last time. Do you want to walk us through those changes?
Yeah, there have been some updates, and another one that I actually have in progress that I can talk about at the end. Because conceptually it's pretty simple. But yeah, if we jump into this guy, first off, I'll say that video there's a little bit out of date now because some of these APIs have switched around. But first off, want to thank everyone for feedback. Also, we're looking through all of the responses that we've been getting to the RFC. And, the more feedback that you give, the more that we can shape this and figure out what most of the community wants. Even just like a +1, I agree with this because of X, is super helpful to know. It's strength in numbers, of course. So if a bunch of people agree, yeah, this was confusing to me, then we can go ahead and prioritize that and figure out what we want to do. But some changes that emerged out of this, and by the way, we presented this full RFC on the last RFC call, so I won't be walking through it top to bottom. Y'all can go read it if you want to check that out. But the thing to call out is the way that you import content and use it has changed up a bit. So inside of that example right there, you can see that first off, you will now pull all of these. It's been on an airplane. It might be my washing machine. Let me walk into my room. 1 second. I'm sitting in my living room right now. That should be better. All right, cool. So at the top here, you can see you now import from a fancy module called Astro Content. And that's because this whole module now is just a TypeScript module that we can name whatever we want. Before it was coming from a .astro generated folder. And we decided that's kind of confusing. .astro looks like the .astro file extension. That's what someone mentioned. I realized, yeah, I kind of agree. It's weird to import directly from there. So now there's this mask in front of it where Astro Content will have all the utilities that you need to get content out of your content folder. You can see here we also have some simplified naming. I don't think was ready for last time, but it's here now. You can call simply get collection to get a directory called blog and all of the markdown files inside of that blog directory. And you can pass a function outside of that if you want to filter by certain front matter attributes. Here I'm filtering by the status front matter attribute, checking if it's a draft or not. And you can also call get entry to get a specific markdown or MDX file if you know the one that you're looking for. More of a one-off that you'll probably use if you're server rendering a markdown file and you want to get a specific entry. And the rest of it is the same. It's beautifully type checked. You write out your schema definitions using Zod still. We have a lot of feedback on how we can give you some out-of-the-box schemas so you don't have to learn Zod to use it properly. And also some ways to at least give you some loose type inferencing if you don't provide a schema. Both of those are kind of in progress right now. But the sort of... I
noticed that Z is coming from Astro Content now. That's an exciting update.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that. So you won't need to install Zod to use it. You can pull it from Astro Content like anything else. And you can also use define collection in order for us to let you define any properties that you want. Right now, you can only customize the schema or what your front matter looks like. But you might have other options like mapping to a custom slug because we generate a slug for you. Maybe you want to generate your own with a fancy slugify function. Could be another option that we allow in collections. So wanted to make it a little bit more generic here. And we will be moving all of those into a single config file, which I can show off if I share my screen in a bit. But yeah, the rest of this example is pretty much unchanged. Same use case of, putting up that schema so you get good error messages on what's required. If you're missing an attribute that needs to be on all your blog posts, we can tell you exactly what posts to look for and what to update, even pointing to the exact front matter line if you messed up the types or another issue like that. And those are the main updates. If you don't mind quickly scrolling through this to make sure I didn't miss anything. The main bit to read probably is the Astro content if you want to nerd out on implementation details and see how we're doing that. We're using a Vite plugin to generate that module and make sure Vite understands what it is. It's a really cool feature of Vite that we can leverage for this.
Nice. How do you types? I assume there's a section on that. Types with the Astro content.
Yeah, if you scroll to the bottom of the whole document, I put a little appendix of what the generated type looks like. I think it's at the very, very bottom.
Nice.
Yeah. And that's the magic we're using to bundle Zod without bundling Zod. The main thing to know is that we won't bundle Zod into your production builds, so don't worry about prod builds getting bigger. We code split it to make sure it's only used inside of your config files, and that config's not going to be shipped. So dependencies will be just as lean as they already were.
Nice. Collections, adoption strategy, generated manifest.
Yeah. So now there used to be a few generated files, but now there's just one. Actually experimenting with putting this generated file inside of source content itself, so we don't even need a fancy directory, but kind of going back and forth on if we want that .astro folder for other use cases. But this is where it would live. Content types, declare a module. This is how you do it in TypeScript if you have a custom module. And just exposing everything that the Vite plugin supports. So we have a utility type to get the type of a collection if you need access to that. Really useful for prop passing. And the only part that's generated really is the entry map, where we're mapping all of the blog posts or all of the post, whatever your collection is, to the information about that entry. Here it generates an ID, slug, the collection it's in, and the data is just inferred from whatever you configured. Here we're just mapping your schema file over to the schema definition. So we'll just infer everything for you, nothing to generate there. It should mean pretty reliable code that won't break on you between runs.
That's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I'm a big fan personally of that update to the Astro content directory or virtual module, I guess. I was just playing with Prisma quite a bit and had a lot of trouble with the .prisma file.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is really cool that it avoids that problem.
Right. Yeah, I actually have run into that. I couldn't remember what issue I hit, but it is annoying to deal with.
Nice. And this is a really nice change as well. Tony asked, did you already respond to that? Zod be shipped as part of the SSR entry point?
I need to double check that code splitting works out correctly, because if you use Astro content to use get collection, I want to make sure it doesn't also bundle Zod by accident, because there's a chance it does, and need to work out if that's an issue. Otherwise, you would import from Astro/Zod as a separate thing, but I would much rather have everything stay consistent in a single module. So it's up to Vite on whether it's able to code split that you didn't use the Zod export. My hope is that it does.
Cool. Awesome. Are there any other questions from the audience? Feel free to drop it in chat or jump in. This is a really exciting RFC. I'm so pumped. I can't wait to start using this.
Yeah, it just felt really good to check it out. I should also mention the part that felt good was we're factoring our examples for both docs and blog to showcase how this thing can actually be used in the real world. So in this draft PR that you have pulled up, I did actually update our examples. So if you go to files changed, I think you can just browse by... it doesn't do the file tray on the... Oh, there it is.
It does.
It is.
I removed it. I had it collapsed. Cool. What's the best file here? This one?
Yeah, that one is one of them. So this is using the get collection property to get all of the blog posts and generate a little homepage with all of the links out to those blog posts. And if you're wondering how those routes get generated, it is in the ... slug just above this, which will use another utility that was added recently called collection to paths. This is, as the name implies, takes all of those blog posts in the blog directory and turns them into URLs on your site. And you can use TypeScript in order to see what those slugs actually are. Here I'm using the collection entry utility so that I can say, all right, once you generate the paths, I know that it's going to pass down all of the blog attributes as props. So I just made it post here, and I could say post.data.slug in order to see what all of the slugs are. And TypeScript will just tell you, we generated, introduction, we generated MDX post, whatever. And you can browse on your website to see how those routes look in the real world. But yeah, I expect that pattern to be used a lot, where you have big directory of Markdown that you want to make live on your website, but also have all the type checking good stuff. So this lets you wire all of that up without having to put them in your pages directory, set up magic layouts, etc. It's just a big dynamic route.
Nice. So that's one of the big benefits here is no more magical layouts, which can kind of be a pain because it makes your Markdown a lot less portable. And people don't like putting layout in every file for obvious reasons. I think this is one of the big reasons we haven't made that automatic layout for every file in a directory thing happen yet, is because we've been working on this change where layouts are kind of moved up a level.
Yeah, and it also makes it very clear what props are available, because when you wire up a layout, you have the magic content prop today, and you have to typecast everything to make sure it is what you think it is. Yeah. And we have no way to use the magic of schemas to make sure the props look right when they get to the layout. So we said, well, let's just say to use a dynamic route, pass in all the props, and you can do the type checking right here. It's all very explicit, so that, as you said, you don't have to tie layouts and other things to your content, so that's very portable.
Nice. That is super exciting. I'm guessing there's not any questions from the audience, but I'm very curious what the next steps are for this, Ben.
Yeah, so there is one more change that I need to update on the RFC, which is migrating all of the schema files into a single schema file at the base of your content folder. If you don't know what that means, you might have noticed in the RFC you have to make a separate schema file inside of every collection, which can increase clutter over time as you're writing more and more of these little files. So I said, what if you just put them all in one file and then had a big map from the collections to the schemas that they generate? And I'm going to update the RFC to explain what that means. But as you see here, instead of saying source content blog index, you would just have a big source content /config file that wires up all of your collections in one fell swoop. So that if you wanted to reuse a schema across multiple collections, you can just apply that variable a bunch of times and build out your map from there. So schemas will get simpler. They will get easier to write. And I'll update this with some examples of how you can use that in the real world, as well as updating the blog example. So that'll be the last major change based on some feedback. And from there, we're dogfooding on Astro.build right now. We're also dogfooding on the official Astro docs to see how possible it is to migrate to a system like this. And when we feel good about it, I guess we will go towards consensus for an experimental release. So not this week, but in the coming weeks, that's what we're moving towards.
Nice. The place to track that, I assume, is this RFC and the PR?
Yeah, keep checking the RFC. I'm going to record a new demo video so that you can just, at a glance, understand everything that this is doing. And the APIs are definitely feeling more finalized than they were before, based on all the feedback. So, just read the RFC and check it out.
Cool.
Oh, I need to write tests.
And yes. And for any super adventurous people, you're using the content schemas tag next -- content schemas. Probably don't rely on anything at this point, but if you're super adventurous and want to give feedback, that is a way you can do that.
Yep, I'll share a little command in the chat. If you have an existing Astro project and you want to put the content schemas on top of it, see how it feels, install that, and you'll have the fancy preview release. No guarantees that anything is stable or works, but, you know, if you want to try it out, go ahead.
Nice. That is super exciting. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
Matthew, did you want to chat about the relative links RFC? I feel like I've seen some discussion there. I don't know if it's ready to talk about.
We can talk about it. I think there's a couple outstanding things to figure out there, but yeah, we can talk about it.
Cool.
Do you want me to just kind of give the summary of it?
Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah, okay. So people often, or I wouldn't say often, but sometimes people have an issue with how our base works because sometimes people want to build dynamic bases, essentially. So what they would like to do is they would like for all loading that we do, like for example, loading CSS or loading scripts, to be done with relative links. And that way, no matter where they might put their application, you know, in any given path on any given domain, and you know, because of relative links, it would find the files correctly. So that's kind of the desire that people have. So this is an attempt to define that in a way that's, you know, is defined, because currently it's not. So there is a Vite property of base, which is kind of the same as our base, but a little different. And what you can do with the Vite base is do /, and that means make it relative in Vite terminology. And that works for like Vite's index.html style apps. You know, if you just use Vite by itself, that will do that. It doesn't work inside Astro for a number of reasons. The biggest of which is 404 page. But before I dive into that problem, kind of define the solution that I'm going for here. And this is very much, you know, open to bike shedding and all that sort of thing. But because this is really related to like the build output, I added a config option inside of the build config called link style, and link style can be either absolute or relative. Absolute is what we currently do, and what that means is that, like for example, here it will append docs to the front of it when it's adding the style sheet. And if you do it relative, as you can see in that example, you actually don't need to provide a base here at all. Instead, it will just kind of go to the root. And for any given page, it will make that relative. So yeah, motivation here is that we often get support questions around this. People have tried using / if they happen to be familiar with Vite. Other people are just like, well, how do I do this? And there's not a great way. Yeah, so definitely need to get more into implementation here, but essentially the idea is that there's only a few places in our code base where we like generate links ourselves. One of those is link tags. The other is for hoisted scripts, and then also for any Astro islands. So the idea is that each of those would use the link tag, or link style config option, and use that to determine how to produce these links. The biggest problem currently that we're facing here is that well, there's actually kind of two problems, I would say. One is actually, I'd say 3 problems. The most obvious, to me at least, option is that what happens for 404s. So we have this 404.astro feature in Astro, and what this does is if any page you try to visit is not, there's no route for that. We'll instead look for a 404.astro file and use that. What that means is that for any given page, any given path, you can have foo bar bars. We're going to use that. And because of that, we can't actually generate relative links for those things because it could be served from anywhere. So that's kind of a big problem. If you're doing SSR, we could still make it work, but for static site generation, we really just can't, as far as I can think, which is a bit of a problem. So, kind of my idea, I don't know if I actually wrote this, but my idea here was that if you're using link style relative, then you just cannot use 404.astro. Those are kind of a feature that's not available under that option. That is my idea. Like I said, this is still, I would consider this a draft RFC, so definitely open for debate and figuring out better ways. So then images are also an issue. And talking about this with Bjorn a little bit, but I think last time we chatted is that this would be hard to do. What I mean there is that when you import any asset, that asset is not aware of where it is on the page, or where it's going to be rendered, so it's really going to be relative, which is going to mean it's always going to be absolute. So that's a bit of a problem. Not sure what to do about there. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'd say drawbacks. This does add a little bit of complexity, which is not is complexity, but it is complexity that people have been asking for, and is complexity that is it's a real use case, I would say. Not fixing images is a pretty big problem in my opinion, so I'm not sure what to really do about that. One idea that I haven't really documented yet, and it just kind of from discussions where people have tried to just use base itself, is to provide some helpers that we could do, kind of like we used to have Astro.resolve. We could have Astro.relative perhaps, or Astro can join base, which actually joined a base. I think we probably, maybe even before this RFC goes through, is to have some primitives, some missing primitives. That way, if you were importing an image, you could use Astro.relative, and it would make it relative to the particular page. So that's a possible solution to the image problem. And maybe even have, like we talked about in the past, having like the local directive. We could have a relative directive as kind of a higher level, a way to do that as well. Anyways, but that's kind of my thinking there, is I think we might need a few things that just make using base a little bit easier now, for people who are using that, because you can use base, and you can pass base as a CLI flag, and in that way you kind of are able to do what people are trying to do here, which is deploy this anywhere, but because you can decide at build time where to deploy it. That's kind of, we probably need to fill that out, I think, to see how that works for people. And then maybe that's a good enough solution and we actually don't need relative, but I think it will always be something people would desire. So anyways, yeah, still working on this one, I would say.
Nice. I know I see import maps mentioned here. Obviously that only works for JavaScript modules, so not really the right solution.
The reason why that's mentioned here is that one alternative to this would be to use a base tag. Mm-hmm. And with a base tag, you basically, it's I'd say most people are familiar because it's not something that's used very often, but what a base tag does is the page itself defines like where the base of your project is. And that way you don't have to use relative links. You can just, like in this example here, just say asset/main.hash.css. That would make it a little bit easier for us in that we didn't have to like try to look up relative all the time. We could just always use these flat or bare. But the big caveat there is it does not work with imports, which we do create imports, when we create the islands. It doesn't work there. So that's a big problem.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Does the base tag have the advantage of working with anchor links as well?
Yeah, I believe it does. I believe so. It's been a long time since I used it because I always base would also not be portable. No, it would be portable, I think, aside from the 404 case. It'd be portable in that every page would define like base to equal dot. Base can have dots in it, which makes it portable.
Interesting.
Yes.
Cool.
Well, no, it would. Yeah, it would. Yeah, I think it would still work. I'm understanding, Chris, but it would not work for 404.
But you would need. I think what I've seen sometimes is the request is people like they want their build output, like literally the same build output deployed on different places. So presumably for the base tag, you'd need to like at least deploy twice, once with base for one of them, once with the base for the other one.
No, I don't think that's true. It would be
okay.
the base. The base would be the same. The base just points to wherever the root is, so it doesn't matter where the root is. Like the base doesn't include /docs in it, although it can. In our case, it would be like if you're on foobar baz, base would be .. /../..///. So the base itself would be relative.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, instead of making all the links relative, you just make the base relative, and then everything else can just be flat. But it doesn't work for modules, so it's a non-starter really. And also, just I don't know if people don't use base a lot because it's unexpected, and you might use some code that doesn't work with it. That's not a very good explanation, but kind of my experience in the past. But yeah, I would love to try it.
Yeah, the base tag seems like one of those features that was like half thought through and can be super useful in some situations, but is really unexpected.
Yeah. Anyways, yes. So yeah, I think the next steps here is figuring out what to do about images. Like maybe we can have some helpers here. Maybe there's an astro.relative or something that people can start using because that comes up often anyways. And if we have those, astro.resolve. We do already have that, so I don't know. Maybe there's a world where we can reuse that. We deprecated it because people were using it for link tags, and that didn't really work in our when we redid the build. But yeah, maybe there's a world where that exists. Wild.
Cool. Thank you very much for walking through that. Yeah, this seems like it'll solve a lot of problems that people are having, because I think just more and more people are looking for more portable output. I know SvelteKit has done a lot of work on making everything relative. But yeah, it's a sticky issue for sure. Appreciate your work on this.
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. Let me make sure this is pasted in the chat as well. If anybody has feedback on that, please do leave a comment and let us know. This would be super handy. I think this would also push us to finally get the Astro docs at astro.build/docs, which we've been talking about forever. still haven't done. Nice. Cool. I think that's all I've got. Are there any issues that need discussion or anything like that? That's always worth checking. Though Matthew, you might know off the top of your head.
Issues. I don't think there's any that really need discussion.
We used to use this, but don't
Yeah,
anymore.
we haven't. Not sure. Yeah, usually I would say it's the PRs if there's contentious PRs, but there was one around params that we actually were able to get merged. That was probably the most contentious. Someone is refactoring the Deno adapter to make it kind of work better with Node shims, but I'm not familiar enough with that to really talk about it yet. I think that's really all.
Sweet. RFCs, Shelton. Yeah, so there's some discussions here. Yeah, some good things to call out. The 364 364 384 364. Cool. Yeah, we can look at that one. Astro template outlet. So I'm just gonna read through this. Declaratively render a template. Jax script. Interesting. So pieces of HTML to be used. Yeah, that's a cool concept there. I'd be curious about, let's see. So outlet kind of makes me think of like routing, which I know is an idea we've played with. So this kind of feels to me like snippets or like components. But I guess the idea is that you can do it in on the client and reuse that. Is that right?
I believe so. I mean,
Gotcha.
from my interactions with Sheldon, it's like, well, looking at this, I can't see what he's proposing that we can't do with just Astro components.
Right.
Yeah, it
This is
looks. Can we have at one time have a way to like define a template within your template and then use it or something?
It's definitely an idea I played with. Yeah, having like a fragment that you could reuse. I think part of the reason this is definitely desirable is because JSX or TSX, like you can put many components in the same file, and we sort of explicitly have a single file component model, and I think that's really frustrating sometimes. So this is an interesting idea.
It'd be interesting to really like to hear more of the use cases because we do have Astro.self, which is kind of it's kind of does this allows you to render yourself. So in that way you can do like recursive things. So if If you want to do things recursively, then that's kind of a solution. I'm not sure if that's really the goal here, though.
And if we were to tie into the templates, then given the way that we are handling slots, the names of slots, etc., that's going to cause a wee problem down the line when it comes to HTML hardliner.
Yeah, well, that's bike shedding. It's First, you got to understand the idea, and if it's a good idea, then we can talk about names.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that the template here is both used on the server and available on the client, right? So that it's rendered into the outlet, but the template itself still goes to the browser. That's interesting to me. I would have thought it was one or the other, like it was a server-only template or a client-only template.
Yeah, I do think that's appealing in a lot of cases, because you'd be able to like instantiate a component on the client and like repeat. See you, Caleb. Thanks for coming. And repeat components on the client, basically. But there's other ways to do that, but that's an interesting idea because you can, duplicate templates.
I'm wondering if you have a variable inside of this template, like what happens? Like, is the idea, are you gonna pass arguments through the outlet thing to the template, or is the template picking up the variables from its front matter?
Right. I think that's why in early explorations of a similar idea, we were like, but you only have one front matter per file. So that's kind of where that became a problem because you might want to run different logic per each thing. I'd be really curious, Shelton, if you know of any other frameworks that have kind of thought about this idea, like Vue or Svelte. Since they also have single file components, I wonder if they've explored anything similar, and if they have discussions or anything we can learn from that. Might just be a good reference to add here. Gotcha. Cool. Well, yeah, we'll keep thinking about this. I would recommend fleshing out the motivation and use case a bit more, so we can talk about that. That would be very helpful, so that we have as much context as possible. View macros. Yeah, if you could include those links here too, that'd be super helpful. And we have some connections to the Vue team. Definitely could chat about that with them. Cool. Thanks for bringing it up and making sure we talked about it. Definitely appreciate that. There was I see a big one here. I did notice this. So generic props and type alias props. So this is not a thing we've supported. I'll definitely add a comment to this discussion. But this is not a thing we supported because it was very hard to do. But it should be supported in the next release of the VS Code extension, which is in a pre-release now. So, yeah, generics weren't really a thing. So I noticed the use case here is creating polymorphic components. So I've definitely thought about this and would love to add just like a built-in polymorphic component type, and then Astro props gets automatically typed for you. So hopefully we can make that happen. Kind of relied on some changes in the compiler.
Yeah, this is very cool. I've run into this one too.
Wait,
Where?
what?
So kind of what's going on here. You're basically, if this code snippet were functional today, what it's doing is telling Astro, like maybe someone's going to pass me component of div, and Astro will just know what type attributes belong to a div versus a button. All of that, like TypeScript could actually read backwards and say, "Oh, you gave me button. I know that cannot have like an href on it."
Right.
But I think that's the use case here.
I think so. So it definitely will work in terms of like passing in properties. What you're not going to get is like types in this file, because as you're editing this file, you don't know, like, props here will still be any, right? Because we don't actually know, like, this might default to div, but we don't know when it's used what these props are. But we do know that they should be valid.
Right.
Regardless, when you use the element here, whatever type this is, you should get completion and validation for everything. So if you pass in component equals anchor, you should get href and all of those types. So that's definitely something that's in the pipeline. Cool. Super handy. Let's see. Silent build is kind of a new one. So I see that this got answered by Caleb, which is super helpful. We do have a silent flag, but I think in terms of output, like, I think for people with tons and tons of pages, like this, it's a lot. So I don't know, maybe we're thinking about something there to kind of hide just the pages. Definitely something we could look into. Awesome. Cool. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Lots of awesome things coming on. Obviously, the holidays are coming up. Things are going to get kind of busy, but we'll keep doing these as much as we can. And we have some exciting new features coming, so keep an eye out for that. Awesome. I will let you all go. Appreciate it, and see you next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Peace, guys.
Thanks, Tony. See ya.